Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a review of all the rares, super rares, and legendaries in the color Ruby. Going to be grading them from a scale of 0 to 5. If you didn't see my common and uncommon video for Ruby, the grading scale works on the fact that like a 5 is a bomb that's going to win you the game if you get it out, a 0 is unplayable, 3 is something you're happy to have in your deck, a 1 and 2 are subpar, 1's more kind of a sideboard card, something if you're noticing something really in your local gaming system. And then a 4 is obviously a really, really good card. In the commons and uncommons, we had a lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s, but hopefully we'll get some more exciting cards moving forward here. So let's take a look. So the first card here is Aladdin, Heroic Outlaw. So it's a 7 inkable casting cost creature for a 5/5 with 2 lore. I would think Gates that's reasonable. It's not the strongest body, but the fact that it is inkable and gives you 2 lore is pretty good. It does have Shift 5. We saw previously there are some Aladdins that cost 2 to get out, so you play them on turn 2. One of them has Ward, so you can potentially play this on turn 2, or 1 or 2. Yeah, play them for a few turns, get some lore out, and then eventually shift on to them much quicker. So if you get this out on turn 5, it's a really good card, especially if you're playing it on something that has Ward. You can protect it fairly well early on. And then the ability here is Daring Exploit, so during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore and each opponent loses 2 lore. So this is obviously a huge, huge swing. I think the way you want to play this card is you want to hit their weakest creatures. So if they have a 1/3 or a 1/1, you want to be trading with these. Take out as many 1 toughness creatures and then 2 toughness creatures and 3 toughness creatures. Unless they're really putting your feet to the fire and you're about to lose the game, that you have to get rid of some major threat. It's better to trade off all these smaller creatures and you get these incremental gains where you go get 3 for 1 for this card at the same time. Every time you do this, it's a 4-point lore swing, right? They lose 2 lore, you gain 2 lore. That's a 4 swing right there. You do that 2-3 times, you're up 8 or 12 lore in difference there. So that's obviously quite powerful. What do I think of this card? This card's probably a 4.5. The issue is if you don't shift it, if you don't have an Aladdin in play, this card comes down and there's a chance that it gets removed on your opponent's turn before you do anything. Besides from that very strong card, I give it a 4.5. Next up we have Captain Hook. This is a 7 casting card, ink, non-inkable. So much, much worse in terms of casting cost. It's also a 5/5 with 2 lore. So it's looking much the same as Aladdin, except you can't ink it. So hopefully we're hoping for something better. It has Rush. This character can challenge to turn they're out. So that's reasonable. And the ability is You Coward. While this character is exerted, opposing characters with evasive gain Reckless. So this way, essentially if you're facing a large evasive deck, you're able to make them attack into you. Likely get poor trades because evasive creatures tend to have poor stat lines. It's an okay card. I'm not super big on it. I'm not excited that's not inkable. I mean, that really drops down for me. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing this on turn 7, you're challenging the turn it comes in, not getting any lore out of it, taking some damage, and then they're going to attack into you the next turn because you're making them, essentially. Now, you get a 2 for 1 for 7. Probably isn't what you're looking for. So overall here, I think I'd probably give this a 4. It's reasonable. Next, we have LeFou, or LeFou, 2 inkable casting cost creature for a 2/2 with 1 lore. This is about going rate, right? You'd expect a 1 inkable for a 2/2 with 1 lore. So let's see what the extra casting cost gets you. You get Fan the Flames when you play this character. Ready chosen character. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. So you either play another character, it quests, and then you ready it, and then you challenge, or you challenge twice. Something like this with the Aladdin card we saw earlier on. Lets you get multiple challenges in the same turn. This is okay. This is probably a 3. It's nothing special. The fact that you can untap and potentially protect something that you really want to do, or get a second challenge off and really start clearing their board, that's a reasonable card. I'd be happy to play this. I'll give it a 3. Up next, we have Maleficent, a big dragon. So we got a 9 inkable casting cost creature here for a 7/5, so a reasonable body. Again, a lot of those other 5/5s that we just saw, Aladdin, Captain Hook, for 2 less will trade into this, and there's other cards as well that have 5 power for much less casting costs. The good news is this is inkable, unlike Captain Hook. There is 2 lore on questing, which is pretty good. And then Dragonfire, when you play this character, you may banish chosen character. That's quite good. So Worst case scenario, this comes down, banishes something, they play a premium removal spell on it, so you get rid of that from their hand, and then you went a 2-for-1. Worst case scenario, I mean that seems pretty strong. Otherwise, you banish something, they attack in with like a 3-2 and a 2-2, and you go 3 cards for 1. That's pretty good as well. If they don't have an immediate answer for this, you just start picking out their weakest creatures or a really strong creature they need to equalize the board. You start questing. This is a fantastic card. I think I give this a 4.5 overall. I don't think it has the combo necessarily to win out. And I think what's keeping it from a 5 is the overall casting cost, right? It's going to be hard to get to 9. Obviously, you can play it in a ramp deck and a deck that you can ink some of your creatures after they die. And there's ways to get more ink on the field. But at 9, not all games are you going to get there. So oftentimes this is just coming down as an inkable, like as an ink in your inkwell. And so for that reason, it's a 4.5. Next up, we have Maui Hero to all. So 5 inkable casting cost creature for a 6/5. The character has 2 major abilities here. One is Rush, so they can challenge the turn they come out. And then the second is Reckless, that they can only challenge. And if they're able to challenge, they have to challenge, even if it's a bad trade for them. So obviously Reckless sets you up that potentially your opponent can exert their creatures in such a way that you have to choose a bad trade and you don't hit what you really want to hit. The good news is you kind of get that surprise turnout because it comes out with Rush. So if they tap something or exert something you really want to get rid of, you're able to do that. It's got a good stat line for 5. I mean, the other, right, the 6/5 is going to take out most things, including Maleficent. So this can come down and you can essentially remove something, maybe 2 things, right? This is, I'd probably view this as a good removal spell. If you look at like Dragon Breath, I believe in common in Ruby, it's a 5 casting cost, non-inkable, banish target creature. This is essentially the same, except it's inkable, so a little better. You can rush in as long as the creature's exerted, as long as they don't have a combo where they're not exerting their creature or the creature you need to banish is evasive. This functions the same, and on the upside compared to Dragon Fire or Dragon Breath, if that creature can't deal 5 next to you or 5 damage to Maui, then you get to swing again. The downside is this does nothing for your lore. I mean, this is I'm happy to have this, and I would essentially look at it as removal. The idea that you're just going to attack in, it's going to trade for 1-for-1 or 2-for-1, or you get a couple cards out of it, and certainly it's good, and you have the element of surprise to get rid of their best creature. I think this is a good card overall. I'll probably give it a 3.5 out of 5. Next, we have Mickey Mouse, the Brave Little Tailor. So 8 inkable casting costs for 5/5 with 4 lore. So I mean, that's massive, right? 4 lore. We know lore comes at a premium. You only need 20. Oftentimes, by the time you have 8 ink, you're already up to 13, 14, 15 lore territory. Getting him out is, and if he gets to quest, you're essentially going to win. And then evasive, only characters with evasive. So you can, if they don't have any creatures with evasive, you can quest without concern of being challenged. So they're gonna have to have premium removal. So this is quite a good card. I mean, it comes at a huge price though, right? 8 is massive. And if you were to ask me, would you rather have this or Maleficent Dragon for 1 more? I'm almost always gonna choose Maleficent, right? Coming down and automatically banishing. That's really, really good. So I still think this is good. In the right deck, if you have a way to protect your creatures or get a lot of lore out early with a bit of ramp and hoping to just kind of push through another 4 or 8 right at the end of the game, I think this could fit nice. I'd give it a 4 out of 5. Next, we've got Mulan, Imperial Soldier, 5 inkable casting cost creature for 4/5. Again, decent stats for what we're seeing for kind of 4 drops, 5 drops. With 1 lore, which is a little disappointing, but it does have lead by example. And so during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, your other characters get +1. So the idea is you don't want to be questing with this character, right? You're not paying 5 ink to get 1 lore off a quest. You're paying 5 ink so that when you challenge one of their small creatures and you've got 4 other creatures on the board, it's giving every one of them +1 lore, so that's a 4 lore swing. Or if you got 3 creatures, a 3 lore swing. If you're playing like a go wide deck with a lot of smaller creatures, right? You play your 1 drop, you play your 2 drop, you play your 3 drop, you play a 4 drop, you got 4 or 5 creatures out. This card comes down, you challenge, trade or not, and then all of a sudden you're swinging for like +4, +5 lore on top of the 5 or 6 lore you're going to do. That's like a 11 lore turn. And if you built up any lore before this, I think this is what you really want in an alpha deck. Like if you're going to go wide and hoping for that turn 5, play this, turn 6, win the game, this could be quite good. That being said, if it's not in that deck, I don't think it's very impressive. I think I give it a 4. A solid 4 here. Next we have Scar, Shameless Firebrand. So 8 non-inkable, so again, huge deal here. 6/6, stats are reasonable. 1 lore, not fantastic. So it does have shift 6. So you might be able to get this out 2 turns earlier, but again, it's non-inkable, which I'm never a fan of for expensive cards. And you get Rousing Speech. When you play this character, ready your characters with cost 3 or less. They can't quest. So essentially, you bring him out, you can ready your characters to protect them, but more likely to swing back into your opponent. I think this is kind of a win more card. If you're already winning and you've got creatures on the board and you have creatures that have good attacks on the board already, and you want to get a couple extra lore out of them because you can untap and then challenge in, I think this is fine. That being said, I think you have to be ahead. Like if this card has, if you're trying to stabilize the board, you got one other creature that you really need, or has a bad trade and you play this, it doesn't really do much. And then what? This card's going to come down at 8 and get you 1 lore turn. I mean, that's not going to win you the game. The ability can be useful. I'd give this a 3. I'm not impressed with this card at all. Next we have Stitch, 6 inkable for 4/6. Stats are in line with just 3 lore. This is just the big generic creature. For Mickey Mouse for 2 more, you get an extra lore and evasive. So this is in my mind kind of like a budget Mickey. It's okay. If you're looking to build a budget deck where you really need to get lore out a bit earlier than Mickey, this is fine. I'd give it a 3. Next we have Taka. If you watch my previous videos, I'm not a fan of this Taka. It's 6 non-inkable, so that's not great. It's an 8/6, so sure it's good. It doesn't have rush, so it can't attack the turn it comes out. It doesn't have any lore counters, so it can never win you the game. Like if all he needs is 1 more lore and this is your card, you're not getting that lore. And so yeah, you're gonna attack in and get a 1 or 2 for 1. Maybe if it doesn't get removed ahead of time. I mean, this just isn't what I want to be doing with 6 mana, like at all. If my decision was between this and if we take a look back at a card, if I could play a 6 inkable with, I mean, same toughness, a bit less, right? The power here, 4 power is going to kill most things, and 6 toughness on both, you're going to get the same number of trades. So if the difference is that I can get 3 lore out of the other one and I can ink it, I just like that much better. I'd probably give this a 2. I'm really not a fan. I'm surprised this is a super rare. It's really not that impressive. Next we have Be Prepared. So there are a few circumstances where I'm fine playing a high casting cost card that's not inkable. And this is one of those scenarios, right? One, if you're going to play a card 6, 7, 8, 9, it's really got to be winning you the game or making a huge impact on the board. And if you're playing a card for 6, 7, 8, 9 and it's non-inkable, I mean, it has to win you the game, right? You got to be, I'm playing this, even if I was losing, I'm now probably in the lead. And I think this is exactly what it does, right? You have this in your hand, you banish all characters, both sides of the board. So you see you have this in your hand, you stall for time, you let them play more, get their board big and wide as you're stalling for time. They're running out of cards in your hand. You're saving your characters, or you got 2, 3, 4 characters in your hand and actions ready to go. Right before they're going to win, whatnot, you banish this, you get rid of everything. They have no cards left in their hand. And then you card dump, right? You get the next turn is your turn. You get like 2, 3 creatures out. You got removal set up. This is a fantastic control card. I really like cards like this, because you can essentially, if you're playing smart, you can 4 for 2 them, 4 or 5 for 2 them type thing, and just take over a game. So this is one of those cards that you still have to have the right deck because you have to get up to 7. So you have to have a bit of a ramp deck or a bit of a stall deck. You're not going to play this in a super aggressive Ruby deck where you're playing 1 drops and 2 drops. But in the right deck where you've got the right ink out and you're ramping a little bit, you got some bigger creatures to follow up after this. I think the combo you're kind of looking for is you play this on like turn 8, you wipe. they try and come back and stabilize the board with a card, and then on turn 9 you play like Maleficent Dragon, right? Banish that creature, and now you got a big dragon out that's questing. That's kind of the dream, but this is what you're looking for. I'm a huge fan of this. I think it's either a 4.5 or a 5. It's probably one of the best cards in the set, I think. I'd probably give it a 5. I'd be hard pressed if I'm making a top end deck not to include this. I'm really impressed with this card. So next up we have Poisoned Apple. 3 non-inkable casting cost item that you pay 1 more ink. You banish this item itself, and then you can banish a princess. That's okay. If princess decks are the meta, or the top cards in your local gaming system is princesses primarily, this is fine to play. The tap 1 to exert, I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's certainly not why you're playing this. Essentially, this is targeted removal against princesses. Usually these cards are sideboard cards, so you get like a grade of a 1 or a 2 typically. In other card games, you might see a card like this that's like destroy target flying creature, and you don't want that in your deck at baseline unless flying is everywhere. You want it as a sideboard. I mean, this is fine. I think there's enough princesses, just like the next card. I think there's enough villains that if you want to run a couple copies of this in your deck, like 1 or 2 copies, I think that's fine. I wouldn't be super excited about this. I mean, it's an okay card. I'm happy to give it a 3. If you get it off for a 3 and then banish 1, I mean, that's premium removal. That's excellent, right? That's an excellent card. But if not, it's literally a dead card that you can't ink. I'd probably give it a 3. I think 2.53. And then finally, I was just saying we have the Sword of Truth, which is an item. Just like the other one costs 3+1, this one just costs 4. So you get it out a turn later, but then you can activate it without paying a cost. So they're essentially the same cost. You banish this item, banish chosen villain character. So again, this is a 2.5 or 3. It's fine. If you want to play 1 or 2 Poison Apples and then play 1 or 2 of these and then play some Dragon's Fire, Dragon's Breath, the 5 cast removal. I mean, when comparing these cards, so you can just imagine. So this costs 4, and Poisoned Apple, for intents and purposes, costs 4. For 1 more, you can just banish target character with no restriction. So obviously, you're going to choose the 1 more. So this is okay if you just need more removal on top of the 5 casting cost removal. So how are you going to want to play this? So this is actually a big decision. Both items are a big decision. You can play, for example, the Poisoned Apple on turn 3, and then wait for them to have a really good target. The problem is they won't play that target, right? They'll wait till they get a weaker princess, play that princess, wait till you banish your apple, and then play their good princess. That's not the worst, because it's preventing them from playing their really good princess. And if you just hold on to it, if they play a 2/2 princess with 1 lore and you just don't banish it, and you just wait for that really good target, 1 of 2 things are going to happen. One is you're just going to not have a card. But if you're really holding back like a Moana or a really good card here, that's doing its job. So that's one approach to play it, is to play it kind of as a bluff to see if they'll play into it, and if they do, with a good card, banish it. The other way you can play it is just assume the Poisoned Apple is a 4 casting cost, just like this. You wait until they play the character, and then you play it and banish it. The downside with that is if there's ever a turn where you have 4 ink and there's nothing to do, you don't have any other use for the ink, not playing the card puts you back in ink, right? So the idea is later on, maybe you want to play a creature and you can't because now you have to play the card. I think in general the proper route, as long as there's not a lot of destroy items in the environment, is to play this when you get it and then just hold it until there's a really good creature. Unless you draw a second one, then banish whatever creature you have with the first one. And then that's how I think you should play. If there's a lot of destroy items, I would play this as an action. I would play it and get rid of it all on my turn and wouldn't risk it. So yeah, so to recap, kind of 2.53. So that's the end of this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. I hope this will help you with your deck builds and hope you get some good results in tournaments. Post below how you guys are liking the set. If you have any questions, comment. Let me know. I'm happy to answer. If you like the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. Love to see it. And otherwise, stay tuned. I'll get the next colors out in the next few days here. Have a good one, guys.